Welcome everybody to Gold Hill. We're going to talk about this area in Rowan County that is right near the edge of Rowan County, near Cabarrus County. And we're going to talk about, there is a major historical event and historical importance that happened in Gold Hill. So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to take you to some different spots that are around Gold Hill. But we wanted to start here at the Gold Hill Historic Park.
So in 1799, a kid named Conrad Reed supposedly found the first gold nugget in North Carolina, or in the United States actually, down at a farm in Cabarrus County, which eventually became Reed Gold Mine. Now, in 1825, the first gold was found here in what would become Gold Hill. It's found on a farm of a Mr. Troutman. Supposedly, the story goes, they were plowing and came up with gold. A lot of the first mining that went on here, though, was primarily in pits called placer pits. And those are kind of off the beaten path, hard to get to, and are kind of dangerous to actually walk around because you don't know if they're going to fall in or not. So you have to be very careful when you're walking here in Gold Hill and not walk around any of the holes. Now, Gold Hill's kind of unique compared to, say, Reed Gold Mine. Reed Gold Mine had a lot of large gold nuggets. Gold Hill, though, is known for almost microscopic gold, but there is tons of it in the ground. It's just hard to get out of all the rock that's here. So the operations that were here had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get into the ground and get down to this gold. But if you could get down to it and you could get enough of it, you could make millions of dollars.
I think I read somewhere between $7 to $9 million of gold. And that, pulled out of the ground,
and that's probably a low estimate.
A low, which is, I mean, think about that. $7 to $9 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of gold, and if that's a low estimate, that means that potentially more has come out of the ground here.
And as a matter of fact, the gold particles were so small here that the dirt could be worked 3 or 4 times. So you'd have a company that was here who owned the mine, who would work it and pile up the dirt that they just claimed to be trash, and then local people would come out and work it themselves and make enough gold to make it through the rest of the year, make it 2 years or whatever. They could just continuously work it as they went.
So you heard it here, trash dirt could be gold.
That's right.
So here we are, Main Street, Gold Hill, right here. And in the 1840s, when gold started to be mined out of this area, this became a boom town. It became a boom town again after the Civil War. And what a boom town means is that people know that there is easy money to be made because all you've got to do is go down in the ground and just pull out all these gold rocks. So people would come here and they would look to make easy money. They would do some pretty hard work. Those mines were not that great. You had stale air and you couldn't see, it was dark and all that kind of thing. And so it wasn't great working conditions, but if you could find the gold, then you could make money pretty quick. So this town exploded with people that were here just to make that money. So there were a lot of saloons, a lot of bars that were here at this time. So this was known as a pretty rough and tumble place. If you remember thinking about Old West towns, this was a lot like that a long time ago. You've got several stores that you can see, one right here and then one over here. This one is an original store from the 1840s, a general store there. And then we have another store that's on this other side. Now it's been redone a couple times, so it's not as original as it used to be, but there was a store sitting on this spot when this town was a boom town.
Yeah, and in the 1840s, the mayor of Charlotte came to Gold Hill to visit, and he said he hoped one day Charlotte would be as big as Gold Hill.
So right behind us with this chain link fences, we have the Barnhart Shaft. And Aaron's going to tell us a little bit about why it's important to come to a spot just like this and to talk about the Barnhart Shaft.
The Barnhart Shaft was dug in the early 1840s by a guy named George Barnhart. Now, George was the son-in-law of a guy named John Reed, who you might remember if you've ever been to Reed Gold Mine. In the 1830s, there was a fight over a gold nugget down at Reed, and the mine shut down for over 10 years, so George had to find somewhere to go and mine gold. So he came up here. He had heard about a find in the 1820s. He came here and he dug in this spot and found one of the richest gold mines in the southeastern United States at the time. Eventually this mine got to be 435 foot deep, and before a shaft on the other side of the road was dug, this was the most profitable gold mine in the United States.
Behind us is the Randolph Shaft. It's on the other side of the road. So it's across the street from the first shaft that we looked at earlier. And this shaft is actually the deepest hole east of the Mississippi River. It goes down 825 feet into the ground. And Aaron's going to tell us a little bit about why this is the most important one of the two that we'll talk about.
So this shaft, it was dug in 1850, and basically as soon as it was done, you were getting more gold out of this shaft you were getting out of the Barnhart. So this immediately became one of the richest gold mines in North America.
We're sitting in front of the Powder House, which is a little ways away from Main Street of Gold Hill. So it's not going to be right near where all the mines were. It's close to it a little bit, but it's going to be off the beaten path in this back trail. And Aaron's going to tell us a little bit about why it was important to have something like a powder house if you were mining gold.
Well, primarily, this building was used to house gunpowder. And that's one reason why it was off the main path. Because you don't really want to have your gunpowder out where everybody could get to it, right? Now, whenever you're digging a hole around here, you can go down a few feet with a shovel, and that's fine. But then you hit a layer of rock. And in order to get through that, you need something more than just a shovel or a pick or something like that. You've got to have gunpowder. All right? So in the 1800s, they would build structures like this into the ground to keep the gunpowder cool, to keep it dry, because one thing you don't want is hot gunpowder that's exposed to static electricity. That's how you go boom. All right? So that's the importance of this building. It's really cool that it's still here. It has been redone a little bit. For the most part, it's exactly as it would have been in the 1840s and 50s if you would have come down here. Gunpowder was used here at Gold Hill probably throughout its existence as a mining town. Gunpowder was most often used all across North and South Carolina. But in the 1870s and 1880s, a new boom device was invented called dynamite. All right, TNT. And that gradually would replace gunpowder in the more professional mines. But the mom and pop mines, kind of like Reed Gold Mine and other places all around the Piedmont of North Carolina, they would always use gunpowder.
Out here we have the dam that was used for the mining here, and what we also have around us in this area is what to everybody right now would just look like a bunch of trees and just a forest, but it was actually where the miners' cabins were. And so the cabins that they would use were not cabins that you would think of today. They were not very nice cabins. They weren't well-built cabins. They didn't have water. They didn't have electricity. They were very roughly built, because remember we talked about earlier, when you came here to mine, you were hoping to make money, and then you were hoping to hopefully make enough that you could go and do whatever you wanted to later in your life. This was not something that you would want to set up a career and have a home when you're being a miner here. So that you'd have a lot of cabins that are here. You can't really tell that they were here today because they were so roughly built that they kind of just reverted back. Nature took over after those cabins were done. But Aaron's going to tell us more about the dam that's behind us and what it was used for.
So the dam that we're sitting on was built somewhere in the 1840s originally. And it kept being added to as the mining operation here got bigger and bigger. Because water was both one of the biggest hindrances to underground mining and also one of the biggest helps to mining, which is kind of a strange dichotomy. But once you got down about 40 foot here, you hit what's called the water table. And at that point, you need to be able to pump water out from underground so that way you can keep going down. Otherwise, it's going to be like trying to go down into a pond, and you can't do that. The miners needed steam engines to be able to pump the water from underground out. To do that, kind of ironically, you need water. So this pond was built to help supply water to the gold mines. Now, we are a good ways away from the Barnhart shaft and the Randolph shaft, so the water that was here would have to be pumped from this pond all the way up to those shafts, and that's a good ways uphill. So it was quite an operation, number one, to even build this pond, but number two, to get the fresh water from down here all the way up. But being that the mines are on top of a hill, it's the only way to get water up to them.
So imagine if at your house you have a well, and that's where your family gets their water. So what happens with a well is that you dig deep into the ground until you hit the water table that Aaron was talking about earlier. And so when you have a well at your house, you want to find the water table, but think about if you're a miner, how much different that is, because you need the water for steam to be able to pull out all the water that's down there, because there is so much, because you want to dig deeper and deeper into the ground. So it's a very different way of thinking about how we use water and how they use water to mine back then that we really don't pay attention to much today.
I've talked to a guy who in the 1950s was able to go down in some of the mines here in Gold Hill. He told me about going down into one was very spooky because the way they pumped the water out was so slow that whenever they went down into the tunnels, they saw footprints heading back towards them and tools and things like that, where the miners who had left just walked away, walked back to the elevator at that time, came back up to the top and left everything the way it was. And the way the water table came back up through there and filled up, it wasn't like a raging river, but it came back up slowly and left everything exactly like it was. He said it was very, very just unnerving to walk through that.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Every time we went to a spot, I said, so we're here. But I have to stop myself from doing that.
I would always say all right before I started the program.
Yep,
And once I started recording it, I was like, can't say that anymore.
And so, I
Yeah.
use so a lot. So I had to fix that. Okay. So out here we have the, I'm going to try to do that again.
Go boom device.
Hey. Every there. All right.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Have I even in this shot? I mean, it kind of
You are.
seems like
No, you are. You're totally.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I started
I'm
with
totally
you.
in this
I
shot.
started
Yeah,
with you.
yeah, I'm totally in this shot. Yeah.